Juggling motherhood and modern day life can be stressful and relentless, but it doesn't need to be this way. The Joy of Being podcast is the answer to maternal mental health, bringing sustainable relief and calm to hardworking mums everywhere so that you, your family, and work can thrive. My name's Rohini Pearson, and I'm your host, transformational coach, and mum who loves to interview business owners, transformational professionals, and creatives to have insightful conversations about what it takes to really live a life that is thriving, fulfilling, and full of joy. And today I've got some amazing news. You can now order your very own version of the Joy of Being book, supporting hardworking mums to stress less and live more. If you're the type of mum who is struggling with the burdens of motherhood or modern day life, then this will be a perfect book for you. If you're curious, you want to know more, and you want to see what's up with that book, you can do so at www.marinapearson.com/order. On today's show, we have the beautiful Rohini Ross. I met Rohini back in April of 2019 at the 3TBC conference in LA, and I immediately gravitated towards her and her energy. And when it came to sort of going, okay, the first podcast of this year, which one will it be? I thought and reflected on, let's do this about relationships. Let's do this about intimacy. Because at the end of the day, when I speak to most people about what they want, it really comes down to one thing. They want connection. They want intimacy. They want to be with someone that they really love and cherish. So I decided to start the year with this beautiful soul where we talked about how it's possible to create deep intimacy from a place of effortless and ease. She lives in Topanga, CA with Angus, and she's been married for over 20 years. She has 2 teenage daughters, and she loves spending time in nature, hiking and reading, watching films, eating delicious food, and having fun with friends and family. She's also on the faculty at the University of Santa Monica from 2011 to 2016, and she's a regular blogger for the Huffington Post and Thrive Global, and the founder of the Soul Centered series. She has an international coaching practice, and she works for corporations and offers workshops with 1-year-long apprentices and 6-month coaching clients. So if you're having issues with your relationship, intimate relationship, and you'd love to find a way to create more deep intimacy within it, then this is going to be a great episode for you. Enjoy. So welcome everybody, and on today's show I have the wonderful Rohini Ross. I met Rohini in LA at the 3PGC conference that I was at in April, and just love what she was up to. And ever since, I've been following her stuff, and as well as her husband's Angus, right? That's his name? Yes. Got it right. Yes. And they're everything relationship orientated. So I know that we haven't had that many relationship podcasts over the last 2 years, but and so this is why I wanted to focus on doing one again. So welcome, Rohini.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to speak with you, have this time with you.
So I'd love to start with what got you interested in this whole area of relationships, and why did you decide to focus on it in the way that you do?
The relationship area, it kind of unfolded organically. I'm trained as a therapist, so I'm trained to work in a lot of different areas. When I came across the understanding of the principles, at the time I was feeling really kind of discouraged as a therapist, and on the leadership team of a behavioral health company, working with families that were struggling. And I was just feeling like I was not able to maintain the level of intensity that was required of me with everything that I was doing. And at the time, it looked like it was because of my job. So that was the main issue in my life. And so then when I came across the understanding, it shifted the whole way that I saw working with people in terms of no longer wanting to focus on the problems, fixing the problems, focusing on the issues, delving into emotional catharsis work. Like, it just really shifted that approach. And one of the wonderful things is it transformed my relationship with the work that I was doing. But something that I wasn't expecting is that it really transformed my relationship with Angus. And I wasn't even looking in that direction. But I would say that hit me so profoundly that we could have a relationship that was working and functional, but I didn't know what else was available in terms of the level of intimacy, level of trust, level of internal safety within myself, because fundamentally that was what was that is what shifted inside of me, is that I found a deeper connection with my own okayness, good enoughness, well-being, whatever you want to put a name on that, my true nature. I just had a deeper experience of that. And one of the most profound areas that shifted was our marriage and my ability to be in the marriage, fully committed, not ever thinking about jumping out anymore, as I was well into the marriage. And we just started getting along in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And I started being way less sensitive in the relationship in a way that I didn't think was possible. So it just became a lot more fun, a lot easier. And because then Angus got interested in the work, we just started working with couples. We just really found a lot of joy sharing what we'd learned with other people. And so it was just a very natural extension of what we both seen for ourselves.
That's so beautiful. I love that. I love the fact that you saw that actually there was no reason to jump. So in terms of working with couples, what have you seen? Like, what are some of the most profound shifts that you've seen that have, like, to sort of explain a little bit more to those that are listening, how could you possibly help them? So, is it everybody? Is it, are there any specific stories that you can share that you were like, oh my God, like, that's amazing?
Well, one of the stories, we're actually putting it together in a podcast right now. So we have permission to kind of share their story as long as we keep them anonymous. But it was one of those, we get couples that come to see us in a whole range of situations. Some couples just want to have a deeper experience of the love in their relationship and really deepen that intimacy. Some couples are on the other end of the spectrum and they're, this is our last stop. If this doesn't work, we're out of this relationship. And that was one of those situations where divorce papers had been written up and served, but yet they wanted to give it one final chance. And what we really look at with all of the couples that we work with that are struggling and really feeling discouraged and not hopeful about the relationship, we really want them to know that we're not attached to any outcome. So we're not there to make sure they stay married or fix the relationship. But what we are there to do is to help each one of them have a deeper connection with their own experience of who they are, their own connection with their own wisdom, their own internal safety. And from that place of deeper connection, deeper awareness of self, then make decisions about the relationship from there. And so that was really what we did with this couple. We worked with them. We tend to work with couples in a retreat format. So we take 4 days to spend the time with them so that they can really slow down, get settled. Angus and I work with them one-on-one. We spend some time together, but most of the work is done one-on-one. And we really help them to see how their partner, their circumstance is not responsible for their internal suffering. First and foremost, we want them to have freedom to connect with an experience of love, joy, their inner value and worth. We want them to get back connected with that and to remember who they are and to remember the wisdom that's available to them. And from there, they get their own insights about the relationship. They get their own recognition of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense based on sort of having a new vantage point to look at the relationship. So fundamentally, the bulk of the work is on stripping away all of the habitual thinking and the conditioning that has people look at their partner and blame them for how they feel. I mean, that happens across the board in so many relationships. You did this, now I feel this way. Well, when they really see that their experience is coming from inside and their relationship with their own thinking is where emotions come from, then that opens up a whole new vantage point to have a different relationship with their own thoughts. And then through that, have a different experience internally where they can not be a victim to the other person in the relationship, to really find their own sense of agency and sense of empowerment through recognizing that how they feel doesn't come from outside of themselves, and that they have access to peace of mind, to love, to happiness, no matter what. And I'm not saying that we're going to feel that all the time, but someone can't take that away from you. And so through that journey, what we really got to explore with them is to help them see that more deeply. And, from the intensive, they really got to a beautiful place where they really wanted to recommit to the relationship. Now, we went on quite the journey with them afterwards in the follow-up sessions, because there was kind of some shakeups that still needed to be sorted out. But fundamentally, where they landed, and again, we weren't attached to where they landed, but they landed in the place of both being genuinely committed to being with each other and being in the relationship in a new way where they weren't holding the other person responsible, and they weren't feeling victimized by the other person's personality traits, because we're all going to have our good days and our bad days. We're not always going to behave perfectly. So a relationship has to be able to withstand our partner's highs and lows. And when we understand that it's not personal, it's so much easier to weather the other person's moods when they come, knowing that they're going to go, knowing that's not who they are, recognizing it's not about us and it's simply about them getting caught up and being in a low mood. It makes it so much easier to ride out those times as a couple with less hurt and less conflict. And so, we supported them in seeing how that was possible for them.
That's really beautiful. And so I'm assuming that when you say internal safety, well, actually, I'm not going to assume. I'm going to ask, what does that mean?
So for me, it's like recognizing that the experience of safety that I can look for on the outside isn't ever going to be found there. But if I look inside, there's an experience, there's a space of peace and okayness that is there when we look inward, that's available to every single one of us. It doesn't mean that we're going to always experience it and be connected with it all the time. But when I'm not connected with it, I have at least hopefully will remember at some point that it's going to be through looking inward and through looking for that space inside of myself that I'm going to find what I'm looking for. And I spent many years in the the same position that most of our clients. I spent many years thinking that my life would be better if Angus were different. I really, when I would get upset, scared, hurt, it would really look to me like he was the source of my suffering. And so I would go external and I would try to change him. I would try to change my circumstance. I would try to, work on the relationship. Like I would look outside to try and find a sense of well-being. And it never worked. And it took a really significant toll on the goodwill in our relationship because he felt criticized. He felt that I was basically saying that he wasn't good enough as he was. And I was basically saying that. That was what I was saying. And so to realize that all that I had been looking for all along, if I had just looked inside and found that space within myself, I wouldn't have spent all that time and suffering, because I was suffering doing that. And also our relationship wouldn't have been as difficult. And we're really fortunate that we were able to kind of navigate the difficulties. And, we separated at one point, but we got back together. But, just feel very grateful that we're able to weather that. But place of well-being inside and knowing to look there when I'm not feeling okay has just been so helpful in terms of us being able to get along. And we had a very high, I would say for a lot of our marriage, we had a very high conflict relationship. And it's minimal at this point.
Wow. When you say high conflict, what does that mean?
It means a lot of drama, a lot of tears, a lot of hurt, fighting, a lot of fighting. A lot of fighting, active fighting, non-active fighting where we're both in our corners but not speaking with each other, conflict like that. And a lot of hurt, hurt feelings and blaming the other person for the conflict and holding on to a position. It was, and again, it wasn't all the time, but percentage-wise, it was a lot of the time. And especially compared to what I know is available now, it's like, oh my goodness, how much time did we spend fighting, not speaking to each other, feeling hurt, trying to make up, trying to change our relationship, going to workshops, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh my goodness, so much effort. And fundamentally what we see now is that our natural state is that of peace and love and well-being. That is our natural state. That is the natural state of every single human being, everyone. And so if that is our natural state, then that is the natural state of a relationship. Because when you have two people in their natural state, that is going to be the byproduct that they experience. And so rather than working at getting anywhere, it's actually relaxing back into the natural state of who you are and feeling the truth of that, feeling I use the word security because that was really important to me. I spent a lot of my life not feeling safe in the world. I spent a lot of my life trying to do things so that I would feel safe in the world. And none of it works. There is no feeling safe in the world, but there is an experience of inner peace and well-being and safety that is available. And it's a complete 180. At least it was a complete 180 for me to look for that inside of myself. Because even when I was doing sort of spiritual pursuits, like I had a very committed yogic practice and meditation practice, but I missed the point. And I'm not saying that's what the teaching was saying, but I missed the point while I was doing it because I was doing it to get somewhere. I was doing it to get something. And so I turned something that was very much a internal self-reflective process into a doing and a trying to get somewhere and a trying to improve myself. And of course it doesn't work when we do that. And so we can turn anything into this pursuit of trying to find our safety, security, well-being, peace of mind on the outside through doing. But ultimately it's through the non-doing and through the being that we get that experience. And it's so much easier than I ever imagined and so much closer than I ever knew.
And in terms of intimacy, what does that mean to you? Because I know that you said internal safety. Because I think we all look for intimacy and then we talk about this word, but it means different things to different people. And I'm just curious about what you've seen in terms of having this understanding and intimacy being a byproduct of getting quiet.
Yeah. Well, first I would say it started with a new intimacy with myself. Because I was very self-rejecting. I really judged myself. I really didn't like myself in terms of what I would perceive, what I would judge as weakness, what I would judge as not good enough. Like I really judged my insecurity. Like that was something that I just really didn't like about myself. And what this understanding did for me was it helped normalize the human experience. And it helped me to realize that what I was judging so harshly in myself was just a normal part of the human experience. It's like, would I judge, having two hands? Like, no, I don't judge that. It's just, what most people have. So it's like, oh, insecurity is just a normal part of the human experience that comes and goes. It doesn't mean anything about me. So that understanding allowed me to have a deeper acceptance of all of me, all of my humanness, not just the parts that I liked. And so that was a greater experience of self-intimacy. And from there was a greater acceptance of Angus and all of his personality and how he shows up. So there's a much less judgment directed towards him. And in that natural acceptance, it just realizes like, oh, there's nothing to be scared of here. If he gets dysregulated, if he gets angry, if he gets reactive, the things that I would judge about him mostly was around his when he would get angry. I would get very judgmental about that, just like I would get judgmental about myself if I felt insecure. So when I saw that, oh, that's just him getting caught up, he's going to settle, that's not who he is, no big deal here, nothing to look at, move along, give him some space, it allowed me to love him as he is. And to me, that's a deeper level of intimacy that I didn't experience before, because I really wasn't accepting of him. I liked the parts that I liked, and I judged the parts that I didn't like. And to let that go, there was such a level of love that became available. And in that, in a relationship, there's just a beautiful synergy that happens when we're able to love ourselves and the other person as they are, as we are, without conditions, without judgment, and really show up genuinely from that place. There's a beautiful synergy. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that anything goes in a relationship. I'm not saying that people have to stay in relationships if they're not safe, if they're getting hurt. But I would say that having a deeper connection with this experience of peace of mind is going to give you the resources to make whatever relationship choices need to be made. And for me, the relationship choice I made was to stop judging my husband and to love him. And it wasn't an effort. It was just something that became natural when I saw that that was possible. And it really started with me recognizing and understanding more about the nature of human experience and getting clear that that is not who we are. We are not our thoughts. We are not our feelings. We are not a behavior. Those are experiences that we have that come and go. And who we are is much deeper than that, much more profound than that. And that we can have a relationship with that within ourselves and with the other person that we're in relationship with. Chip and Jan were speaking recently at the Soul Centered series, and they talked about how Sydney Banks would share about not talking to the mask, talking beyond the mask. And it feels like in our relationship, I was constantly trying to change the mask. I was constantly talking to the mask, trying to change the mask, trying to fix the mask, whether it be my own or whether it be Angus's. And all of a sudden, there was this shift where it was no longer about the mask. It was about what was beyond that, behind that, deeper than that, whatever you want to say. There's no way to really put that into words. But having a relationship from that place was completely different. And what it did is it allowed me to love the mask, myself, mine and his, and really see that there's no separation, that it's all just part of the expression of who we really are. And to love and appreciate that.
I love that. What came to mind when you were speaking was I was having a conversation earlier with someone about this, and I was sharing how it's easy for me to see it in my son. So I'm able to really be compassionate towards him when he's having a major meltdown, or I just hold him, or he'll just get and I just kind of go but we turn it into a joke, or I just say, okay, I'm going to leave you be, and I'm just, whenever you're ready, come find me. And I was like, I can really see that with him, but I find sort of the adult version of that quite challenging at times, especially those that are closest to me, right? So And what dawned on me today is that actually there's no difference. And that was just this major thing of like, oh my God, there is no difference. There is no difference. It's just Leo's in a smaller body. And I have made something up about that. And when in actual fact, he's just having an experience of life as everybody is. And I just suddenly thought, oh, wow, when someone is upset, angry, pissed off, they're just like a little child just having a bit of a rant. And I just hadn't seen it in that light before until today. And I don't know, just something really innocent sort of showed up in my awareness around that. And yet I can still be hoodwinked. I can still go back in and not see it clearly at all.
Yeah, I want to be clear that I'm absolutely still on the learning curve with this. And it's like a little bit of this goes a really long way. Like even without being perfect, our relationship conflict is like 2% of what it used to be. And and neither one of us is perfect. But what you're describing is just so profound, simple, and beautiful. Like it's innocent. It really is innocent. And when we can see the innocence, we naturally see the suffering that's occurring. And that when we see that, it just seems that the organic response to that is compassion. And I had never experienced compassion in the face of Angus's upset previous to this understanding. I don't think I had ever experienced compassion. I had always, gone to a reactive, taking it personal place. And that's what shifted is, we had a really profound moment, excuse me, where he was, doing his thing. And instead of me taking it personally, getting reactive, criticizing him or getting condescending, I genuinely saw he was suffering, and I saw the innocence, just the way you're describing, and felt compassion, and he felt that. And he felt the genuineness of that. And that was transformative. And what he said was that because I wasn't reacting to him, I don't know if he said these exact words, but it was like there was nothing for him to push against. There was nothing for him to react against. And so it felt to him like I was holding a mirror up. And I wasn't doing that intentionally. But what I hear in that is that when I was not in a reactive place, and actually in a very loving place, he was kind of left with his own conscience and able to hear it. And that naturally course corrected his behavior in a way that I had never been able to do all of those years. But it was within him. I didn't need to be doing it. It was within him. And he finally was able to hear, and what am I doing here?
That's so beautiful. And I guess for some of us, that's true. And then for other of us, it may not be true. It may be that what was the George Pransky said? I loved it. It's like the earliest warning sign is death. You just never clock it, right? It's like, oh, okay. Because it's interesting to me because I move in the area of relationships and people and this and that. And what I notice is there are some easier characters than others, right? It seems to me that there are some easier characters than others. So if somebody's listening in and going, yeah, but this is great, but love and compassion towards somebody that is being mean or angry or who has a tendency to actually blame and be the victim and all of that, what would you say to that?
The first piece is to find your own well-being and peace of mind independent of them, and to know that that's available and that can't be taken away from us or from you is so empowering. And as I said earlier, make life decisions from that place of peace inside of yourself and see what occurs to you in terms of your own common sense and wisdom related to whatever you're addressing in your life. And so I can't know what's going to occur to someone from their place of wisdom, but understanding that that's what you're listening to is so important. Because so often what Angus and I see is that people make relationship decisions from a place of reactivity, upset, and anger, and they don't really seek out that space within where they're connected with their own knowing, where they're connected with their deeper self. And it's worth making that journey to create a relationship from that place, or to decide to leave a relationship from that place. Mm-hmm. If somebody says from a place of love, compassion, and understanding that their wisdom is guiding them to leave the relationship, I would trust that. More often than not, that's not the guidance that people are given. But it can be. I'm not saying it couldn't be and that it isn't. But a lot of people make decisions to end relationships from the reactive, upset place. And so to me, it's not that that's necessarily the wrong decision, but it's about really getting to the place where it's coming from the most clarity and really the deeper wisdom. And for the most part, relationships are, I see them as a learning curve for us, and as a real catalyst to help us connect more deeply with our true nature. I think that's, to answer your first question, that's probably another reason why I love working with people on their relationships, especially their intimate relationships, because that's where the rubber really hits the road. It's so easy to kind of maintain our equanimity in many other parts of life, but in our personal, intimate relationships, we often aren't able to do that. And that's a good thing. I don't see that as a bad thing, because we get to really see the edge of our grounding. We get to really see where we forget who we are and where we fall into the notion that somebody has the capacity to make us happy or unhappy. And it may seem hard, like when you're saying about the people listening, it may seem hard for someone to recognize that if they're with a partner who is angry and behaving in blaming and unpleasant ways, like, how can you be happy? But what I'm talking about is a state of mind that is available in the face of that. And I'm saying that from a place of being the person that thought I couldn't be happy in the face of that. I really believed that I was in a relationship where I couldn't be happy. That was something that just felt true to me. And it was not because of me that I couldn't be happy. It was not coming from me. I really believed it was coming from Angus's behavior. And, it was not possible. And to find that space of okayness and peace is the best gift anyone can give themselves, as far as I'm concerned. It is so nourishing and revitalizing and enlightening in terms of just the clarity that we get and the place that we see from. It's really the interrupt to conditioned patterns of thought, because it really brings us present to the here and now, and we see from the here and now, and from there's so many possibilities that we're not able to see when we're in that reactive state. And I would have thrown the relationship away. Like I said, we were briefly separated. I was quite, I was always the one that was more going to be the one to jump ship. It was hard for me to really be fully committed. And, but it was all based on a misunderstanding that he was the cause of my suffering. And what I was fortunately able to see, even, we actually did read the relationship handbook at that time, so that probably helped me see this. But what I got to see is that I was going to still have that experience, whether I was with Angus or not, whether I was with someone else or not, that it wasn't about him, that it was actually me. And that was a very humbling moment to recognize that, this upset is actually got nothing to do with him. It's coming from inside of me. And it really, on some level, as humbling as it was also profoundly freeing.
Well, I imagine also for the other person too, in that,
yes.
They don't feel the pressure to perform.
Absolutely. And it's amazing to see how relationships transform. I was hopeless and I had no vision for what was available. Like if you had told me then that Angus and I would be doing this work together, that we'd be teaching together, that we would, I'd be like, you're kidding me. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. It would have just been crazy talk to me. And it's like I just didn't see what was possible. And I didn't see how the way that I was showing up in the relationship was like putting fuel on a fire in terms of the things that were bothering me about him. And so it's like there was, constant flare-ups. And that as soon as I shifted my way of being, that did shift the relationship. Now, I can't guarantee that for everybody, but I can say that when we shift to a new understanding inside of ourselves, we see more possibilities that we don't see previous to that. And it's sort of like, I'm so grateful that I didn't lose the relationship at that level of understanding, and that somehow we found a way to kind of be together so that we could get to a new place of seeing what was really available to us in our relationship. So I'm the eternal optimist in terms of relationships because I've lived it and I've seen it. But again, not from a place of attachment and believing people should stay together, just because I know what is possible. And for the most part, when people love each other, they fundamentally want to stay together. They just don't know how, and they don't think that they can be happy. And that was my case. I loved Angus, but I just didn't think I could be happy in a relationship with him. And the truth is that I just wasn't able to see, I wasn't seeing where my unhappiness was coming from. Wasn't seeing it. And I was hanging it on him, and it wasn't his fault. Even though he behaved badly. I'm not going to say he wasn't behaving badly at times. He was. But my unhappiness was not coming from that.
So if somebody is saying, oh, well, how do I check in with my wisdom? How do you know? Like, how do you know that it's coming from a place of wisdom or from a place of not seeing it clearly?
Well, I think we all have to kind of reference in our life times when we know that we've been listening more deeply, and kind of use that as a reference point for knowing what the feeling is when we know that we're listening in that way. So for me, there's a neutrality. There's not a reactivity, an emotionality, a hurt. There's this kind of a knowing. And there can be a nice feeling, but not always. It can sometimes be just I just know this is what I need to do. And I think we all have those moments in our life where we just know something, and we just know that we know something, and we may not know how we know it, but we just know. And that is my reference point. And so it's looking to what is each person's reference point for recognizing when they're listening to what's true inside of themselves, and experientially remembering how that feels and being able to recognize it when it shows up. And, it's for me, it's very much a gut feeling, and it's something that I recognize has guided me over the years of my life. And that when I've listened to it, it makes sense. And when I don't listen to it, it's kind of, I get feedback as to I should have listened to it. It's usually. But I don't want to make it anything really grandiose or special. It's like, we all have common sense. We just know, like, oh, that's what I want to do, or that's the right thing to do. It's kind of common sense is another term for wisdom.
I love that. So if somebody's listening to you and they go, right, I'd love to get in touch with Rohini, how can they do that?
The best way to get in touch with me is through my website, rohiniross.com. There's a place to message. If you want to email me, you can email me there. If you would like to check out my blog posts, I have a lot of blog posts on relationships. And if you share links as part of your podcast, I can give you a link for a free ebook about relationships too.
Wonderful. Perfect. Lovely. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and I've just loved every moment of it. Thank you, Rohini. And for those of you that have been listening in, I hope that something in this conversation might have landed a penny drop, or, maybe something else. So, yeah, thank you so much, Rohini. Until the next time, bye-bye for now. And there we have it, another amazing episode of The Joy of Being. And if you would like a more personalized touch to live a stress-free life, then why not find out more about the Joy of Being retreat, an intimate 4-day profound experience at a luxury venue in Javier, Spain, where you get to experience your inner calm and peace of mind by slowing down and making space. To find out more, email me at marinapearson.com with Joy of Being retreat in the title. If you loved what you heard here today and it's been helpful, why not subscribe or share the podcast with others? So until next week's episode, remember, you are the joy you seek.